Well, they haven't announced yet that it's going to be available on the NHS, but I would expect it to be so. And I feel that it's not a good use of the NHS money for all sorts of reasons. First of all, if they made a set of rules which were really strict about, you know, how you could qualify for this treatment, and I don't want to deny any woman the right to have a baby, but I think the NHS, number one, is so short of cash. When they make these rules, women will bypass them. They just will. Because look at the rules at the moment. There are strict rules for getting a gastric band, for getting breast enlargement, and for getting nose jobs and stuff like that. And yet we routinely see people who somehow manage to get it for psychological reasons. Yeah. And even though those might be valid reasons, it's not a good use of money. I think that the NHS shouldn't go down this road. First of all, there are lots and lots of children in Britain sitting in orphanages desperate for parents. And, you know, I would like to see mothers consider all the other options, fostering, adoption, and, you know, IVF. The right to be a mother, but there are so many different ways of being a mother. Why is one way better than another way?
Well, you know what, obviously I do understand that there are other options, but there are women who cannot have children, and this medical advancement will give them the opportunity to do so. As a mother myself, I do find it very hard to kind of monetize this procedure or monetize somebody else becoming a mother. You know, I think if we are able to give that to someone, I do think it's a fantastic thing.
But the NHS wasn't set up to do this.
I understand that they don't have the opportunity of, you know, having IVF. I think it's very different. I don't think you can compare it to having a boob job or to having, you know, your nose done. This becoming a mother is something that is life-changing, and I think a lot of us take it for granted.
The state shouldn't fund it.
Well, the state shouldn't fund a lot of things, and they do. And I think that this is something that, you know, I mean, I understand that it's a very thin line. I also understand there are many children who need to be adopted. I understand that that is also important.
The state does fund IVF.
Yeah.
So is it any different?
And these women can't have IVF. And also, I understand that it's an expensive procedure, but surely the more this procedure is carried out, the less the price will become in the future.
But I think you've got to be realistic. We live in an age where we can't afford, the NHS can't afford enough nurses and nursing assistants to go around and feed old people and people sitting in general wards in hospitals. And we have perhaps one nurse to maybe 20 or 23 people in some wards and one nursing assistant. Now, if these operations, strongly, we might want women to have babies, and I'm not denying that. If it meant that throughout the United Kingdom, if it costs £50,000 an operation, how many care nursing assistants is that? How many nurses is that we're just not paying for?
But I mean, I do think that, you know, when it comes to the distribution of taxpayers' money, there are many things that could be cut
wasted.
Down. I feel that, you know, are unnecessarily spent, and I don't feel that this is an unnecessary expenditure. I really don't.
Well, it's a very difficult subject. I think I completely understand the desire that any woman would have to want to have her own child. And if she's denied that opportunity, it must be heartbreaking. But on the other hand, we live in a world now where technology has advanced to such a degree that I do fear for the future. We have a planet that's overpopulated, and we can't sort of keep up with feeding everybody. We're trying to keep ourselves alive for as long as possible. Obviously, I think that's a very good idea, but we do have a natural life cycle. And I think by making sure that the planet has more and more people, more and more children, I do wonder where it's all going to end. So I think it has to be thought about very carefully, and each individual person that's applying for this particular transplant has to go through a rigorous kind of...
Well, I'm sure I think the thing is, to begin with, I think they absolutely will. It will be so well policed and it will be rigorous. But... And some of this are women who are actually born without wombs. I mean,
yeah.
they don't have never had that choice. You know, it's not women who've tried and just can't get pregnant.
Yeah.
These are women who physically can't get pregnant. But like Janet and like yourself, you kind of wonder how many years before it does start being abused. And it is, well, I didn't want one when I was 30, but now I'm 50.
What bothers
and, you know,
me, recently in my local newspaper in Kent, I read that since the beginning of this year, there are now over 700 children who've arrived in Britain, you know, who've sought asylum. These are children without any parents or any relatives in this country, and there are 700 children being cared for in children's homes in Kent. Now, my heart goes out to those children, and I just want people to look after those children, foster and care for those children, and give them families. And that, to me, is a #1 priority over these expensive